Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Goglorick and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Tammy, the podcast manager, and on the line with me, I have our hosts from Leafy Legal Services, Jennifer Goglorick and Brian Price, and they have another awesome guest for us today. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to them. Jennifer?
Hi there. So today we have someone who's going to be so much fun. She bought her first property at the age of 26 on a $37,000 salary. Yeah, anybody can do it. And through her investing, she was able to become a millionaire by the time she was 31 years old. Now she's the founder of Short Term Shop, a real estate team that helps investors acquire short-term rental properties in the most recession-resistant markets, which we all need to talk about right now, right? So let us welcome Avery Carl to the show. Welcome, Avery. How are you?
Welcome, Avery.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Awesome. So yeah, we have lots and lots to talk about, especially with where we're currently at with the whole COVID pandemic. But first, I'd like to kind of get your history and how you got into real estate and why you started choosing kind of short-term rental type of assets.
Sure. So as Jen already said, I was on a pretty tight budget when I first started. I bought my first single family long-term rental in Nashville several years ago, 2015, 16-ish. And by the time we got our first rent check on that one, we were like, okay, this is something that we really need to get into, but Nashville was getting really expensive. We wanted to scale quickly, but waiting around making a few $100 per property wasn't going to get us there very quickly. So we thought about, okay, well, what can we do to make more money faster on these things? And we thought short-term rentals. We didn't want to do it in Nashville where we lived at the time because the regulations are just really volatile. They're even worse now. So we chose the Smoky Mountains, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area in about 3 hours east. And that has developed into our short-term rental strategy, is only investing in areas that are drivable vacation rental markets that are driven by tourism. So you don't have to worry about really volatile regulations like you do in metro areas. These areas have been dependent on short-term rental income since the 70s, so well before the internet, much less Airbnb. And since they're driven by tourism, there's built-in occupancy there, and you can scale faster because obviously you make more money per month than you do on a long-term. So what I did was I scaled that first short-term rental into 5 within a year. And then I've taken the income from those 5 and rolled it into more traditional long-term rentals. We've got 28 doors now total.
Wow, that's awesome. So when it comes to like upkeep and operationally, I think it's probably quite a bit different than just standard rental stuff. How have you kind of adapted to stay profitable when you probably have a lot more, you have such more turnover with the short-term rental versus, a long-term rental?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we charge, everybody does, it's kind of how Airbnb and VRBO work. You charge the cleaning fee to the guest. So whatever your cleaner charges you, you charge to the guest plus whatever extra amount you can get, right? So our cleaner charges us $65 per clean. We charge the guest $100 per or $100 after they check out for a cleaning fee. And so there's a little extra profit there too. And in these types of markets where vacation rentals have been big business for decades, there's plenty of cleaner and handyman and just vendor options to choose from. And we just automate it there's been many apps that have been built around short-term rentals. Turnover BNB is one, so that automatically schedules our cleaners, lets them know they need to come in. There's a type of platform called a channel manager that automates a lot of the FAQ back and forth that happens as people book, when they get their check-in instructions, check-out instructions, stuff like that.
Okay. So are you using Airbnb or you're doing it differently?
So we use Airbnb and VRBO, and there are a few other platforms you can use as well. Airbnb. I mean, there's definitely a lot to talk about with the COVID thing right now and how.
Yeah, they just changed it. Now you guys, I just read that now they're going to require a 24-hour, you cannot book like same day book. You have to give at least 24 hours of a cleaning between bookings, correct?
Right. So that's an optional thing that you can opt into, but the guests will be able to see if you are opting into it, which makes it kind of not optional.
Right.
So Airbnb has made a lot of anti-host moves during this whole COVID thing, much more so than VRBO and some of the other platforms, whereas VRBO has allowed the owners to still kind of control their refund policy, or at least rather than refund them, give them a credit for a future stay, whereas Airbnb just overrode everyone, gave the guests 100% refund. And, most of us had our existing cancellation policies overridden. So Airbnb has made some very loud missteps as in terms of, where their allegiance lies. They've made it very clear that they are catering to the guests and not us hosts that are powering their platform. So I know a lot of hosts that have made moves to kind of get more bookings over on the other platforms rather than Airbnb, just because of the way that we've been treated over the past month or 2 months with the COVID thing.
I guess they thought that you would be able to apply for EIDL and PPP and, not that it would be such a cluster. They have people that have applied first day that haven't heard anything back yet, And so if that would have worked the way they wanted to and not been so overwhelmed with need, and had it stacked for bigger companies, then I think we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing now with the little guys, because when you're getting huge companies, and the Kennedy Center are getting millions of dollars from this. I mean, the Lakers got $4.3 million.
Oh wow, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that was just yesterday. I'm like, how are the Lakers and Short Shack and all these other big companies able to get millions and millions of dollars when they already made so much? And here's like all these Airbnb people going, wow, we just lost all of our income, so yeah, it's going to be interesting how this all shakes out with that. And so let's talk about that, because hopefully by the time this episode airs, we're out of all this, right? So things are going to have changed. So what you're saying is you're seeing a migration from Airbnb to Vrbo or VRBO to other platforms like that. Do you think that's going to continue, or do you think it's a short-term, pushback against Airbnb's overall management?
Well, it kind of remains to be seen in terms of how long this lasts, because if, at least in the markets that I'm in the past week, bookings have started rolling back in pretty steadily. So the longer this lasts, I think the more pushback there will be. But if everybody kind of starts opening back up in the next few weeks and bookings start rolling back in all the markets, I think some hosts may forget about this more quickly than others.
Okay. Interesting. Because I was just wondering if maybe there'd be a new platform that comes out of this as kind of a counter to Airbnb, where a lot of people get together and have more of a of the people that are actually renting these properties. It seems like it would make sense to come to like a unified system to maybe work together and be able to control a little bit more.
Yeah, I've wondered that in the past few weeks, if there might be a smaller company waiting for funding or something that might be able to really take advantage of this situation. And I found that this, being a black swan, absolute worst case scenario for a short-term rental owner, it's kind of proven my strategy right in terms of, so there's three kinds of short-term rental markets. There's your metro markets like Chicago, Nashville, New York, your drive-to vacation rental markets, so regional drivable makes sense, and then your fly-to vacation markets like Orlando and Hawaii. And the drivable ones, while everyone has been hit very hard, let's make no mistake about that, the drive-to ones have been hit the least hard. For example, like we got a bunch of cancellations the first week that COVID started being kind of serious. And within a week, we started getting some bookings coming in from people who live in drivable vacations from us in bigger cities like Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte, who live in like small condos or apartments who wanted to social distance in our places because they just didn't have enough room in their houses to do what they needed to do. So we kind of shifted some things to make our listings more attractive to those types of renters. And we covered all of our expenses, broke even during the worst part of COVID.
That is interesting. So what do you say for the people who get angry at those people? Like the people are like, oh, all these people are coming in from Houston. Like I'm a drive-through market. I'm in Galveston, right? So we have people, of course, they wanted to come down, and then they stopped them in our area. They wouldn't let them do it. They said, no, we're not going to have you overwhelmed, because like even now my stores, there's no Clorox, there's no bleach, there's no toilet paper still. And a lot of it was driven in a panic, because we have 50,000 people on the island normally, and then we get up to sometimes 500,000 people. And if those people overwhelm the things, then it's a deal. So how did you get around? Was that an issue in the markets that you were in at all, or not at all? There was no regulations or worries with that?
So my beach market in Florida, yes, they were checking people at the border. So it had to be just statewide visitors. But the market that I'm in Tennessee, I think we only had something like 22 cases total. So that market kind of didn't freak out too bad about people coming in. And we didn't get as many tourists doing that as we would during a normal March or April. So it didn't really overload anything. So we might have been kind of a special case in that situation, but
maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, it worked for us.
No, that's good. I'm glad that it worked for you. It's interesting. We're going to look back on this, and what we think right now is so different than what we thought a month ago, and what we're going to think and hear about this and find out about this in 6 months. It's going to be a whole different scenario. But for rentals, so talk about that mature vacation rental markets. Why is that preferable to the metro markets? Why do you think? And do you think that that's going to hold through because of this scenario even more so, like as we, in the next year, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. So mature vacation rental markets, I mean, anyone can name a few. If you think of a place that maybe your parents took you on vacation when you were younger, where you didn't rent a hotel, you rented a house. Those places are places that depend on that tourism. And at least in my markets, there are more short-term rentals than there are people who live here. And it's been that way for decades and decades. Whereas the metro markets, like take Nashville down the road, for example, those markets, the Airbnb investors, they're coming in and they're buying houses in neighborhoods that are residential, where people live, in places where people have historically rented hotels. So A, you have neighbors being annoyed with party houses next door, and then B, you have the hotel lobbyists who are losing money to the short-term rentals in those markets and lobbying against it. You get city council voting on anti-short-term rental laws, whereas if you go out to the vacation rental markets that have depended on this income for decades, it would just be way too detrimental to their local economies to ever regulate against it. So I think that's going to continue to hold true over time. Maybe some metro areas will figure something out and stabilize with their regulations. Maybe some will ban it altogether. So it's just kind of still a little bit early to tell what's going to happen with the metro markets.
Yeah. So you mentioned a number of times that like a drivable rental area. How are you finding them versus, I'm sure there's places where there's rural areas that maybe not be good for rentals, and there's others that are good for rentals. How are you finding these places, and what's kind of your process that goes through that?
Absolutely. So my initial process, because I started before there was a lot of data and a lot of articles and lists that had come out on this, I grew up in Mississippi. So I grew up going to the Smoky Mountains. I grew up coming to Destin, Florida, where I am right now, where my other vacation rental is. So I started there, and I started kind of looking into things, but now there's all kinds of lists. Rented.com has a list, Vacasa, Forbes, of best places to invest in vacation rentals in terms of cash flow. And all of these markets that I'm in are in the top 5. So there's plenty of ways to do that research without saying, oh, I like this one place in Arkansas where I went when I was a kid, and then you make a bad investment decision.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of data out there to be able to check that out.
Yeah. Awesome. And when someone's going to start getting a rental house or a rental property of some sort, what would the process you would do? I mean, you just mentioned a number of resources to look at, but getting something at the right price and be able to rent it out, is that also part of those resources as well, that know how to price it and things like that?
Yeah. So first you want to look at, definitely, as we've talked about a little bit prior to this, regulations in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are any, because even vacation rental areas are going to have a few areas where they don't want you to short-term rent to protect the value of the homes and make it affordable for people who actually live there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of data sources. AirDNA is one of them. Mashvisor is another, where you can go and see what the size property you're looking at in the market that you're looking at should be able to gross.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of put that together that way. Also, I just go on, when I first started, I would just go on all the rental platforms and look at the other properties that were listed in the neighborhood that I was looking, and seeing what they're doing. What can I do to be better than them? Are their pictures terrible? Are their listings terrible? That kind of thing. And then once you get into making offers on things, then you can have your agent pull things like the utilities and all that to see how much you're going to be spending, and how much you'll be able to net. There's also plenty of calculators out there online that can help you calculate it as well.
Yeah. Or they can just come to you, because so we're talking to Avery Carl, and if you go to the shorttermshop.com, this is what she does. So at the shorttermshop.com, you can hook up with Avery and she will help you. I mean, because it's overwhelming. Let's face it. She's done all this research. She knows all these different apps that you can use, ways that you can hook up with cleaning people, repair people, because you're not going to be living usually in the actual town that you have rentals. And what if you decide to diversify a portfolio and have a house in Destin, a house in Galveston, or a house in, outside of Pigeon Forge or whatever? Then you can't be in all three places at once and know people. And so someone like Avery can help you do it. The shorttermshop.com. I'm going to say it again, because if you guys are listening to this getting a little overwhelmed or driving, going, what was the name of that app? Oh my God, where do I go for that? Don't worry about it. We're going to have all the links for you. And then you can go to Avery and she'll help you out. So let's talk about some of these apps too, in some ways, because you don't live in any of the places. So how do you know, what did you have to do to get comfortable enough to have other people helping you manage these properties? Because that's usually tough for people. They want to be right there, to see it, but really we don't have to do that anymore. And you can't diversify if you're right there all the time. So talk to me a little bit about that, how you're able to manage things from afar.
Sure. So when I started, I just kind of had to pull the trigger and go and hope we didn't make too many mistakes. We didn't. I mean, we ended up firing the first cleaner we had after a few months, but that's just kind of part of it sometimes. So we just learned how to do all of that so that other people don't have to. We made all the mistakes so that I can teach people not to. And that's what we do at the Short Term Shop. So I have real estate offices in the Smoky Mountain market, Destin, Panama City market, and then the Gulf Shores, Alabama market. And if clients use us as their agents to source a vacation rental, we'll help them do all the analysis, figure out what the most profitable one in their price range is, do all the regular real estate stuff. And then on the back end, we'll help them get all set up with their Airbnb, VRBO, whatever platforms they're going to use, listings, and we'll teach them all the automation tools and tips and tricks, and then also get them connected with all of the vendors that they need to be able to manage it remotely. So, cleaners, handymen, roofers, HVAC techs, anybody that you could possibly need to be able to run one from wherever you are. And so that's what we do, is we get people set up with all of those trusted vendors so that they don't have to have that fear and uncertainty of, okay, what am I doing? Am I making a huge mistake with this person? Yeah,
that's great. I mean, as soon as you're in a rental market you don't live in, next thing you got to figure out, who do I trust for what? And there's so many to do. And yeah, I mean, it's, even if you live in there, sometimes it's tough. So that's great that you offer that kind of service, because a lot of times you get into a property and then you're like, okay, well, now do I do, then your next step, and you get all this different advice from different people. And so it's great.
Yeah. Or worse,
you're helping them do it all at once, so you're not totally overwhelmed. When you're doing the calculations for, making sure it's the right price and you're actually going to make money, Normally, what is your average occupancy rate that you usually use for those types of calculations?
It's going to depend on the market, and
Okay.
there are data sources where you can pull occupancy rates for different markets. AirBNB is one of them. I would also recommend, like, don't take any one data source's data as gospel. Just take it with a grain of salt, use it as a guide more than this is exactly what it's going to be. So you'll, depending on your market, you'll use some of those data sources. And I mean, obviously having someone that you can trust on the ground who owns them and deals with this every day is going to be a big piece of it as well. But you know, you just use those data sources to make your calculations. And another cheaper way that people get into these things financing wise is if you're buying a short-term rental and it's over 65 miles away from where you live, you can do what's called a vacation home loan, and you only have to put 10% down instead of 20% down. So a cheaper way to kind of get into things. And you know, then your lender will be able to give you a projection of what your monthly costs will be. You can take that occupancy rate and kind of back everything out that way to get your net numbers.
Okay, that's a great tip.
Yeah, to get in with some skin on the game. So we did Airbnb for Christmas over here. We went to a lake house that's you know, about 2 hours away, you know, drivable, whatever. Fun, sketchy neighborhood, but God, it was great. We had a great time, and we were right on the lake. It was awesome. But one thing that happened is the fire alarm kept on, the little smoke detector kept on going off. I mean, just for no reason. We're not cooking. It was so annoying. So I thought, oh, it's got to be a battery thing. So we took the battery out, went and bought batteries for it, came back, put the battery in. The new battery didn't matter. It just was like, whatever. So what do you do with things like that? I mean, we didn't call the host in the middle of the night or anything, but what happens if the kids flood the toilet or, the crazy things that can happen on vacation? So do you still get called by owners who do that? Because on ours, it had the owner's names and a number and all that. Or do you have a service that does that so people don't have to get those calls?
So we keep it with us on the platforms, because as soon as people start calling your cell phone or texting, if there's any kind of discrepancy, then whichever platform you're using, Airbnb or VRBO, can't see what was going on. So, you know, if the guest did something and broke something, and you need, you want a security deposit for it, then they can't do anything for you if you've been talking on your cell phone to this person. So we try to keep everything on the apps. We do take the calls. We don't get that many, but if it comes in, if it comes in the middle of the night, we'll look at it in the morning and send. We keep 2 to 3 handy people like on call. And if the first one can't get to it immediately, we'll just go down and call the second one. But a lot of people are worried about the quote middle of the night calls from guests, but it's just like if something breaks in my own house. If my toilet breaks in here, I'm not fixing it. I'm calling somebody to come fix it. And even if it is in the middle of the night, there's no reason that you ever need to go to your places. Even if someone is dying on the floor, there's no reason for you to be there. You just make the appropriate phone calls to get them who they need and move on. But the percentage of the time that happens is not often. We've only had maybe 4 or 5 middle of the night calls in the 5-6 years we've been doing this across 6 properties. So, it's a relatively low number of times that happens.
That's good to know. Yeah, so you don't have to be worried about, people are usually sleeping in the middle of the night too. So hopefully they call in the morning or that evening. One thing is, I think standing out from other rental properties in your area.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything special for people that are renting from you, and that makes it, advantageous to come through kind of the non price oriented stuff that you may be doing?
For us, pictures are a really big deal. If you have the best pictures, you're going to get the most clicks.
Okay.
Other than that, both of our markets get so much tourism anyway, and everything stays so booked. As long as you have nice pictures and a nice, good looking listing and it doesn't look like crap, you're going to get inquiries and you're going to get booked. And then the more good reviews you have, the higher on the list you shoot with the Airbnb VRBO algorithms.
Okay. Should you get a professional photographer to come through? Is that required just to get the best photos you can, or would, if you have enough know-how in your own, would that work as well? Or what do you suggest?
I recommend getting a pro photographer, but I mean, I do have a listing or two that has my terrible iPhone shots on it. That's still time. So definitely recommend getting a photographer if you can.
Mm-hmm.
You don't absolutely have to if you absolutely can.
Right. Do you do any kind of gift baskets or anything like that? Because I've kind of heard sometimes people do that as well, or, you know, giving them kind of idea where to go and stuff like that. Just kind of one of those things that help them get along.
Yeah, we have a guest book of, you know, places to go. We don't do gift baskets just because we found the more extra things you do for guests, the less grateful they are, the more they complain about it. If you leave a gift basket with peanut butter cookies, they're going to complain that they weren't chocolate chip. So we just don't complicate our lives by doing a bunch of extra stuff. So as long as they have a really cute, nice, clean place to stay, they're going to be happy.
Okay. It's good to know.
That's funny about that too. The one place I had didn't have gift baskets, but they were well stocked. You know, they were stocked with soaps and, you know, they had like everything, you know, like razors and all this extra stuff like that. And so that was kind of nice if you forgot your toothbrush or something like that. But we were very grateful about it. So we wrote that.
To leave, you know, paper products and soap and shampoo and conditioner, not razors. That kind of screams lawsuit to me, but we leave enough dishwashing detergent and washing powder and everything. And then we do have a nice stocked spice rack, coffee, non-dairy creamer and sweetener, but, you know, no condiments or anything that's going to be gross, you know, to share.
Right. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about it, about the condiments and everything else. They had a lot of food in there. There was a lot of frozen food and stuff. I mean, I think they used it as their own house too. Yeah. So it was whatever. It was fun though. It was really nice. So have you ever been on vacation in other places and thought to yourself, oh, I love it here. Why don't we go into this market too? How is that like? That would be hard because especially if you're into your job as vacations, don't you always want to be on vacations to check out new markets and stuff like that?
Oh, every time we go somewhere. We went to Tulum a few years ago for my birthday and stayed in an Airbnb. And then I spent like a month after that obsessing over buying places in Mexico. And then I talked myself, there's way too many things, but yeah, every place we go, I'm like, what can I do here?
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you that would be hard and fun too. Well, everybody, we have been talking with Avery Carl. She is the CEO and founder of the Short Term Shop. If you wanted to get into vacation rentals, because eventually we're all going to go on vacation. It's going to be a huge vacation because this was not a vacation. Then why not make it a vacation where you can be an investor and change your life and start adding some cash flow into your life. And Tammy is going to take it away here in a second. But Brian, did you have any last minute things to say? Or Avery, did you have anything you wanted to say? Either one of you.
Awesome. No, it was great. I learned a lot. I think it's awesome. I think vacation rentals, I think people don't really look at them a lot. And I guess one quick question I have is, you know, some vacation rentals are more seasonal than others. How do you deal with the seasonality of certain areas?
So you kind of have to measure everything on an annual basis. So my mountain market, it's a little less expensive per night, but it's more steady year round. Whereas my beach market makes roughly the same amount, probably a little bit better gross numbers, but you're 100% booked in the summer and then it tapers off in the wintertime. So if you're somebody that wants to use it yourself some, maybe a beach market is better for you. You can use it during the off season without cutting into your income. But if you're somebody who just wants to see money coming in all the time, then, you know, maybe the mountain market's better for you. But at the end of the day, it's all kind of a wash. It's just the way it's dispersed throughout the year.
Okay, great.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to start looking today. I just want to get out, man. Not the cabin fever. Okay, Tammy, go ahead and wrap us up then, ma'am.
All right, sure. Thank you again so much, Avery, for coming on the show with us today. And we will have all of Avery's links in the show notes so that you can get in contact with her and learn more about her. And also thank you, Brian and Jennifer, for hosting today. And if you like the show, please jump on anywhere you can hear podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We are at Leafy Legal, and we'd love it if you gave us a comment or a rating. And if you are looking for us on social media, we are at Leafy Legal as well. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you are doing well and staying safe and healthy, and we will see you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Don't wait. Take action now. LeafyLegalServices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.